right, apparently this is the worst time of day lighting-wise to record a video, but I have to go to work soon, so this is what I have to work with. So there's just gonna be like a bar of light where it's kind of trickling in through the window just right. It's the holy light lighting up the Sundance hoodie. And before I start, why did this video get like 54,000 views? What's wrong with you people? I'm making another video addressing this situation, but I'm too sick right now to bring on the hype that's required for something like that, but just you wait. Once I'm better, I'm gonna talk to you heathens. All right, so if you guys couldn't tell, today we're gonna be talking a little bit about Sundance Film Festival, mainly the movies that I liked the most. Now, I would like to point out I'm still sick, and I started getting sick on like the Tuesday morning of my flights, and it's now Tuesday again, and I'm still sick, and some of you are probably like, you should go to a doctor, but it's like, it's been getting better, and we'll get through this. I also know I need to clean up my background, so if there's like future Sundance people watching this for like, if I can get a press badge next year and you just see the mess, just know that this is part of the charm that brings people to the channel. Anyways, if you guys did not know, the reason why there was kind of like sporadic uploads the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, was because I was at Sundance Film Festival for the entire time. I was extremely lucky enough to have gotten a press badge thanks to my friend Arturo, who runs 2 channels here. Well, he runs a few, but the 2 big ones are the ATZ show and Let Me Explain. Let Me Explain has like completely gone on a tearaway. Both great channels, great guy, and his girlfriend Alina, who edits pretty much all the content on the Let Me Explain channel. We kind of all got to go as press. All right, so I've been rambling on enough. Once again, you know, thanks Art and Alina for helping it all happen, and everybody else we stayed with. Zach, make sure you guys check out the Intercut podcast that I was on. So I don't think these are necessarily in a specific order, but these are just some of the ones I definitely think that you should check out. So I'm gonna go maybe in a reverse order. So one of them is me and Art specifically is very worried and very convinced, I'm hoping they don't, that they're probably gonna remake this and make it more English. But it was a movie called The Farewell, starring Awkwafina, and it's all about she's a Chinese American individual. She grew up in China, and I think around the time she was like maybe 6 or 7, her family moved her to America. And then it's like years later, and her grandmother is very sick. But I guess there's this Chinese custom that prevents you from telling people if they're terminally ill. They just don't think it's good to tell somebody that they're dying if there's nothing they can do about it. So rather than having them just focusing on their impending doom, they just go about their regular life. So the entire idea is this family is basically getting together for a fake wedding. This is kind of like Crazy Rich Asians, but like even more so. Very, very Chinese, because honestly, all the dialogue with the grandmothers are all in Chinese. It's all subtitled, and it was just a really beautiful relationship. And there's just this struggle of her, because she's been kind of pulled away from this custom, and she just has both. She has, like how you grow up in America where that would never be okay, and I think it's actually illegal. And then just like the Chinese custom where they're all like, why do you want to cause her unnecessary stress? And it sounds really depressing, but it was hilarious. It's actually a really funny, really like upbeat, uplifting movie. It was really good. And honestly, the grandmother, other than the fact that she was Chinese, obviously, reminded me of my grandmother. All right, next one is Big Time Adolescence, which I think ended up being the most quoted movie amongst ourselves at the festival. So this actually stars Pete Davidson in one of the roles. It's kind of a coming of age story. And I know that the coming of age stories are, like there's tons of them, but I think if you can do them well and you can take a couple of liberties with them and change a narrative that's normally there, you can do really great things with a coming of age story. And I think Big Time Adolescence did that. So it's basically, he's this guy that used to date the main character, Mo's older sister. And then when they break up, Mo's still like, you're the coolest person I know. Like, can I just keep hanging out with you? And he's just kind of like, yeah, sure. And this just kind of extends past the point that, Pete Davidson's character, Zeke, graduates. And it's just like kind of one of those things. And again, I kind of mentioned this when I did my mid-90s review. And it's something that I kind of relate to, because when I was in like my first year of high school, I was like really into like this punk culture. So I was always trying to hang out with these like, grade 12s, kids that had like just graduated, kids that should have graduated already. And I was just kind of trying to hang out with them and be part of that culture. And they were like, for the most part, okay with us like younger kids hanging out with them, and that made us feel cool, but it's kind of realizing at the end of the day that it makes like them feel cool. And there's just kind of this entire other side plot that goes on with it. It stuck the landing. I think that's hard with a lot of coming of age stories, to stick the landing, and this one did. It was good. Next one we want to talk about is To the Stars. This might not be for everybody, but it's based out of 1960s Oklahoma. And the main girl, Iris, has she's a very like significant, like kind of like outcast in her like community, in her school. And I know that's been like done to death. This is another kind of like coming of age, but like coming into yourself story. But like there's so many movies that are like, oh, she's an outcast, but you're looking at her and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you. They just decided that for the sake of the plot, you're just gonna be an outcast. Like, people just decided that they didn't like you because you're a little bit too nerdy or something. Like, with this, there's actually a reason why people treat her, like, poorly, and it kind of extends back that the reason why some of this stuff happens goes back to her mom, who's like this extreme narcissist, and you can just see how that's affecting her through her life. So the whole point of this story is her kind of like coming into herself when this new girl, Maggie, moves to town from like the bigger city, and Maggie kind of like works really hard to like help her build her confidence, and Maggie doesn't care about the thing that everybody else judges Iris for. And then there's just kind of this second layer where like Maggie clearly has some shit going on in her life that like no one really knows about. She's got this like very dark past as the reason why her family moved from like the bigger city down to Oklahoma, and it had a lot of really nice layers. Then we are going on to Little Monsters, which was definitely the most enjoyable movie of the entire festival. Like I said, I saw 51 movies. Some of the movie days were like 6 movie days. Like, you were watching movies from like 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and then the last one would finish at like 2 a.m. This was one of those days. This was a 6 movie day. We got Little Monsters starting at midnight or like 11:45 or something, and it kept me fully alert and engaged the entire time. Like, sometimes those like midnight movies, you hit a little bit of a lull and you're like closing your eyes a little bit, and she's like, I'm just listening. No, this had me glued the entire time. This is a story about a kindergarten class going on a field trip. One of the kids has a lot of illnesses, and his uncle's tagging along as an extra chaperone because he kind of has the hots for Miss Caroline, the kindergarten teacher, but he's just kind of this like failed musician loser, very crass. Kind of imagine how like Jack Black is in School of Rock, but just like amplify the level of inappropriateness. It's Australian, so just kind of let that guide your thoughts. It's hilarious. The whole story. Oh yeah, and the teacher is Lupita Nyong'o. Academy Award winning actress Lupita Nyong'o is assisting this class on a field trip. Oh, I forgot to get to the best part, where a very contained zombie outbreak happens. So that's what's happening on the school field trip, and Academy Award winning actress Lupita Nyong'o is the one protecting these children from zombies. But not just protecting them from zombies, also protecting them from the fact that anything is even going on. She is making them not even realize that there's anything bad going on. And it is fantastic. And we got a Q&A with the director after, Abe Forsyth, and he kind of said that the whole thing was a love story to his son, who also has a lot of the illnesses that the main kid, I think Felix in the movie, has, and the fact that you worry so much as a parent, even with a kid without that many health issues, you're like, I don't know how I'm gonna like let him go to school. I don't know how I'm gonna trust someone else with his life. And then like meeting the kindergarten teacher and kind of tagging along on a field trip and being like, actually, I trust this woman with my son's life implicitly. Like, I trust her more than I trust myself. And then, man, I'd even trust her in a zombie apocalypse. So he kind of made the movie based on that. It's fantastic. I think Neon and Hulu picked it up. I hope they actually put it in theaters. This is worth doing the Hulu trial to watch. I love this movie. I am waiting patiently for this to be released, and I'm gonna buy it. This is this is a rewatcher. This is the kind of movie that people are gonna be watching for years and loving. So definitely keep an eye out for Little Monsters by Abe Forsyth. And also, the guy who played the uncle did a fantastic job too. I know I'm focusing on Lupita Nyong'o just because that's who she is, but the main guy, I think his name's Dave something. I feel really bad. I'll put his name on the screen. He did a fantastic job. So the last movie we're going to be talking about is Honey Boy. So for those of you who don't know, Honey Boy is actually like loosely, but also very much the story of Shia LaBeouf very specifically when he was kind of like a younger child actor around the time of Even Stevens. And then there are some scenes of him when he's in rehab later on, and those two roles are played by Noah Jupe as the younger version of him and Lucas Hedges as the older version of him. And then he actually plays his own father. Shia actually plays his own father in the movie. And the whole thing is kind of dealing with like the hectic, crazy life that he had with his father, who was kind of like this like rodeo clown type guy, and just kind of like the lack of parent that he was. And honestly, if you think right now, think in your head right now what you expect Shia LaBeouf's life to have been like when he was filming like Even Stevens. What do you think? Like, everybody just assumes these like young Disney like child stars, they're kind of like, they're living it up, they have nice houses, they have all this great stuff. Like, think about what you would imagine him living in, then watch this movie and just watch the movie. And I think there's a lot of honesty there. And I think that a lot of people making this movie would have wanted to have been in control of it. They would have wanted to direct it. They would have really wanted to hone in every little part of it. But he was kind of smart enough to be like, we're not going to name the main character Shia. We're going to name him Otis. So that way the people coming in and acting it, they can add a little bit of their own personality, their own flair to it. It doesn't have to follow everything perfectly. It will be quite the reflection of my life, but, you know, instead of having every single person who was involved at this time in my life, we might kind of like push some characters together to make one person, or multiple conversations might come together as like one phone conversation, just to kind of keep things more concise and flow better. So I really kind of appreciate what he did with this. So he actually got, let me just look her name. It's Alma something. Alma Harrell directed it. And I think they're actually dating now, but I guess he had seen one of her movies and then contacted her specifically being like, you know, I'm Shia, I want you to direct a movie about my life. And she was like, how am I supposed to know that it's you? Because we got a Q&A with them as well, which was great, like the whole cast except for Lucas Hedges because he's on Broadway. And then she just said something like, my father's favorite color is purple. And that was his answer as to how to prove that he was Shia LaBeouf. But, you know, here we are, and the movie actually came together really well. And I definitely recommend seeing it. And it was really cool to have like the Q&A. And there are a lot of like parallels where they can't say that it's like this movie happening, but you know it's this movie happening. And you can't say it's this show, but you know it's this show. And there's like literally exact scenes from shows, and then knowing what was happening in the background when that scene was being filmed is like, it's heartbreaking. It's actually really heartbreaking. And like some of the things that Shia LaBeouf is known the most for was stuff he didn't even want to do. His dad was forcing him to do it. And it's crazy to me. So definitely keep an eye out for Honey Boy. That was another one that was bought. Everything I had talked about, I'm pretty sure got bought by bigger distributors except To the Stars. But Honey Boy specifically, I'm pretty sure got bought by Amazon for like quite a bit of money. I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of the ones they're going to push in Oscar season. So you might not see it for a while, but it was really great. So definitely check it out. Now, on top of that, there was like a handful of other movies that I thought were like really interesting and good that should be checked out. One of them is The Nightingale. I'm having a really hard time actually recommending this movie though, because it is the most brutal movie I've ever seen in my life. We had warnings beforehand and it wasn't enough. It's the only movie they ID'd us for, and you gotta know, these movies aren't rated yet. These have not gone through any rating system yet, and they still had to ID us for this. Before the movie started, they said they had on-site counselors. People thought it was a joke, and they were like, it's not a joke. Then the movie started, and I knew it was brutal, and there's like a couple, like, you see one thing, if you know the movie's brutal, and you kind of get on screen and you see something, and you're like, okay, well, I can already anticipate one terrible thing that's gonna happen, but it gets so much worse. It's like the way things happen, and it's almost too real, the things that happen. This is definitely going to be one of those ones that needs like trigger warnings. So if you have like, just keep an eye out. This is something that if you're somebody who has kind of like things, I'm not even trying to be like overly sensitive. Trust me, when you see this movie, this is the kind of thing that's going to bother people who don't have any kind of like triggers or negative experiences dealing with some of these situations in their real life, because it was just that hard to watch. But it made for a really great payoff later down the road. And I think it's going to bring up a lot of like really big conversations because it's like a female director. And I think that a lot of the times people jump to stuff like this to say like, you know, men don't understand certain topics, but it's like, but a female directed this. This is like a straight up brutal revenge story where it's like, it's all happening in Australia. This is like a convict woman who is now like trying to hunt down this, you know, this English soldier. And it's brutal, and it is not for the faint of heart. We had somebody run out really like within the first like 15 minutes almost puking. She almost fell over the balcony, honestly, because she was trying to get out so quickly because she knew what was coming. This is what it's going to keep coming at you. it's like you think you make it through one bad thing and then it just kind of keeps happening for quite a while. But there was some really beautiful performances in it. It was a little long. They probably could have cut off like 20 minutes of it, but it was some fantastic performances. And if it weren't for like the brutality, I honestly think you'd be seeing some like Oscar nominations or at least some kind of award buzz. But as it stands, I don't think it'll get anything. So I'm just putting that warning out there that it was a really great movie, but it's not going to be for everyone. And I have a hard time recommending it because some people are just not going to be okay with it. And then next thing was the Untitled Amazing Jonathan documentary. And if you're like me, you probably forgot who the Amazing Jonathan was. And you might not even know who the Amazing Jonathan is, but he was one of those kind of like late night magician comedians who would do like really like crazy things with like, you know, prosthetics and fake cutting off. And it's not just really a documentary about him, it's also kind of like a documentary of all the twists and turns of trying to make a documentary about this guy. So there is another documentary about him out. I didn't really get much traction. So you gotta make sure, keep an eye out for the Untitled Amazing Jonathan documentary. Not anything else, just that one. I think Ben Berman is the director. It's hilarious. Yeah, that's probably gonna do it for today's video. There were a lot of other really good movies that I saw, but this video has definitely gone on way longer than I thought it was going to. But let me know if any of those sound interesting. Let me know if there's anything you saw listed at Sundance that you were kind of interested about. I will probably make an entire movie talking about like the entire list of like the 50+ movies that I saw at Sundance, and just kind of like some of them will just be kind of like fast opinions and like whether I like them or not and whether I recommend you rush out to see them. These are the ones that like, especially those first 5, these are the ones that I would recommend like going out of my way to watch. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. We'll catch you in the next video where I'm hopefully not sick anymore. Yeah, we'll catch you all later.